Hello everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the WEC and SIA Staffing Insight series. I'm Francesca Profeta and I'm research analyst for SIA. I'm thoroughly delighted to be joined by Denis Pennel, a very active speaker on the changing world of work, and of course executive director of the World Employment Confederation. Morning, Denis. Our subject matter really does carry on from the discussions that we were having at the recent WEC annual conference, and also recently published research focusing on diversity, equity and inclusion trends in staffing. One of the most enduring legacies that we both agree from the pandemic has been the renewed focus on diversity, equity and inclusion. It really has raised, the plight of inequalities, and that of course impacts our industry and our clients as well. An area that we really do see getting back to the new normal is the rise of the hybrid working model, and the capacity to really positively impact efforts in advancing flexibility, creating a more malleable based work solutions for lots of different people within the industry. So, I'm working from home today. Yesterday I was in the office. Hybrid is definitely a way of life now. And our buyer survey does also indicate this. So this is, what our current contingent workforce companies are comprising of. So they're a median of 60% remote workers at the moment. And in the next 2 years, that will go to about 50%. So still a really high proportion. Hybrid is slightly different. So we're looking at a mix of 13% moving to an anticipated 20% in the next 2 years. So hybrid, definitely an increased working model. So Denis, how does the WEC see this impacting positively or negatively diversity within the workforce?
Well, clearly this is a positive trend and a positive development. The global workforce has never been so diverse, which is a good thing. We now have a large, part of the working population being, women, but you have also ethnic minorities, disabled people, older people willing to work longer. So we have a very diverse workforce at the global level. And that means that we cannot answer, the needs of this workforce with just one, model. So we need to have this flexibility in terms of forms of work. This is a way to increase diversity. This is a way to increase inclusion in the labor market. And this desire for flexibility has only accelerated with the COVID. It was already there, but it moved from a nice to have to a must have for many workers and employers. Clearly, the search for work-life balance is there. It's even more than before there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There is data from LinkedIn showing that 63% of people pick work-life balance as a top priority when choosing a new job. Indeed, the growing growth of remote jobs is there. So we all want to have some freedom to choose when we work, where we work, and again, looking at the diversity of the working population, offering, purely one, standard labor contract is not an option. People want to work in different ways, so diverse forms of work are really a must in today's labor market if you want to increase diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, and I think we talk about the business case for diversity within companies, and I think that case has been made and reconfirmed many times. Organizations that do encompass a diverse workforce are just more productive. They're just more profitable than their peers. And obviously, one thing that we do talk about very often in all ways that is the struggle to attract and retain talent. So as you said, hybrid is not really a perk anymore. It has to sort of come with it. And it's really interesting to see the demographic of people who are likely to see alternative work if they're not offered this. So we are looking at, 14% more Blacks over whites were to see or seek alternative employment. LGBTQ were 24% more likely as well. People with a disability, 15% more likely to seek alternative employment. So if we are excluding all of these people from the workforce for something so simple, then our workforce is not going to be very diverse for very long. An area that I particularly thought was interesting was the young. They are 60% or 59% more likely to not take a job if it doesn't fit into their sort of work-life balance and also remote working. And I really do feel organisations, especially a current trend and a future trend, and companies really can't afford to neglect it, are the young. I know we have an ongoing issue with youth unemployment. OECD just last month issued the rate is at 11.3% from January. It's actually up from December. So unfortunately that the unemployment rate is increasing. So how can organizations really be more inclusive of the young? And, are we truly seeing that lost generation and maybe the impact of that in that market?
No, good question. On the one hand, I would say that let's be careful not to generalize too much with the youth, generations at work. It's also a diverse population. You have different expectations, looking at, for instance, the level of graduation from the young people. Undergraduated people might have different views and expectations when it comes to work. But still, you're right. Youth unemployment remains a very high issue and very high on the political agenda. This is not new. It was already true before the COVID, but it remains true. Even it is actually even more, on top of the agenda today. During our conference, the World Employment Conference that took place earlier this year, we had the director of the ILO office for Benelux, who mentioned that actually, youth unemployment globally is now over 15%, which is 3 times higher than the average, adult employment rate. So clearly, the youth population has been, severely impacted by the COVID. But again, this trend was there before. And clearly also we know, whether, looking at our own children or people around us, that, the young generation has been, really, really severely impacted by the COVID in terms of self-confidence, in terms of accessing, job opportunities or even, traineeship. So clearly they paid a tough tribute, to the COVID and when it comes especially to mental health. So that's a reality. So clearly we have to take this into consideration. As an industry, I think we are really a great opportunity for the young generation to enter the labor market. I mentioned some young people actually when they are being graduated, they don't know exactly what they want to do. They don't know which sector they would like to work for. So agency work is a great opportunity for them, first of all, to put the first step into the labor market and to test, different options, different jobs, different sectors. So this is really an entry door to the labor market for those first-time entrants. But it's also about skilling. And I think our industry is also doing a lot into, skilling, reskilling, upskilling the young generation. So they are really able to find a good job and to meet, the expectations from the employer side. So we are also contributing to reducing the mismatch and the gap between workers' expectations and the employer's expectations. So a great role to play for industry. And let's keep in mind that in most of the countries where we are operating as an industry, the share of young people within agency workers is overrepresented compared to the working population. So clearly, we are a favorite way for young people to access the labor market and to get a first, work experience.
I completely agree, Denis. Actually, I've had first-hand experience with this with my daughter. In fact, she's just starting her first new jobs, and she already she's been with agencies, and they've actually been really very good with her. Lots of training, lots of online training, lots of communication. I was actually quite surprised how good they've been. I'll be completely honest, but they have been actually very good for her, and she has already started to have that really good soft skill approach that unfortunately if you don't have a job at a young age you do tend to miss. So how do I respond to this email? How do I communicate with a manager? Very basic things. But if we don't try and include them and encourage them to work at maybe as an early age as possible, those kind of soft skills gained really do detach them from their future earnings and future experiences. So yeah, I think I can definitely give a thumbs up to agencies when it comes to youth unemployment. I think they're really well positioned to help actually provide a lot of non-tangible things. We're not just talking about a bit of pocket money here. We're talking about lots of non-tangible, soft skills that really do help develop the future workforce.
Yeah, and on that one, if I may, indeed, temporary work is really the solution, not only for the students, as you say, willing to make a bit of money, on their summertime, for instance,
exactly.
But also for, gaining experience on the ground, and training on the job is very important within the agency work industry. So that's, again, a very good way for graduated people to really confront themselves with the world of work and to learn on the job, how to behave or to react. So very important also for them to test their soft skills, with the reality of the world of work.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so definitely a good example there. Something that obviously I was at the event that you guys ran. It was a wonderful event, thank you. But something that did come up really from the conference, which was Bridging the Gap. And I do suspect this is in light of, once again, sourcing, attraction, all various diverse candidates, is helping clients revamp their employer brand. People are not going to want to work for an organization that doesn't really now show how they feel about LGBTQ, show how they feel about disability. And something that really did stand out to me was, are we an attractive profession as a DE&I employer? Do we put that forward? So what do you think? Obviously, you're a great advocate of the industry, but do you feel that as a profession we are a good DE&I employer or a good place to promote?
Well, I think on the one hand, there is a clear commitment from our industry to fight against any form of discrimination. Now, this is part of our DNA. We are there to support equal treatment. We are willing to employ as many people as possible. For us, the key criteria for recruiting and employing someone is skills, and that should be the only criteria to be used when selecting a candidate. That's, on the paper, that's the value, and we strongly believe in the value. Of course, you might see here and then, some mispractices that we are, very severely fighting against, condemning, and trying to work with, some of our members if this is happening from a membership base, to correct that, to remedy, and to make sure this is not happening again. And I think you can see many, many good practices from our members from all around the world. So there is a clear commitment from this industry to be as much as possible a promoter of diversity, equality, and inclusion. Then if you look on the day-to-day basis on the ground, our industry is a very female industry. In terms of gender balance, I think we are doing very well. If you look at, branches, temporary work branches, you will see most of the staff working there is women. We are, people's industry. We know women in general, they tend to better care for people than men, So this is very much reflected on the reality of our industry. Of course, the key issue is not only to have women, on the floor, but also at the leadership position. There also, I think we have seen some major changes in our industry over the last years. From the WC point of view, I'm very happy, but over the last, I think, more than 10 years, I had a woman as a president.
Indeed, yes, yeah.
And we have, within the WC board, we really try to keep this, gender balance. This is very important for us. And the same for, diversity in general. So, yeah, I think we are doing our best. Of course, we can improve. We want to be seen as an attractive, industry. It's true that in reality, sometimes we are still too much seen as a default choice, from young graduated. Once again, most of us have entered this industry not as a first choice, but more by coincidence, by chance. But what we are seeing is that once you're in this industry, it's very difficult to leave it. So that's the good thing. Around us, we have many people who have been working for the staffing industry for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, so quite impressive. So it seems we are not doing that bad. But one of the core mission of the World Employment Confederation is to make sure that the high standards we are living for, are really indeed implemented at the national level and on the ground. So that's something we are working on. Next year, we will implement a project to promote even further code of conduct, which includes non-discrimination principles, of course. Several of our members have developed their own, training or education schools. Ireland is a very good one. They put in place a specific, training course for training the people working in the branch, and of course, there again, non-discrimination is a key principle that is being promoted. So yeah, we are doing really our most, because again, this is really part of the DNA of our industry, and that's something we are fighting for. Because anyway, that's the only way, to move forward if we want labor markets to be inclusive, and also to fight, labor shortages. As you know, we are all facing now tight labor markets. We need to source candidates from everywhere. And once again, the only criteria should be skills and nothing else when we are selecting and hiring a candidate.
Yeah, of course. I think when we look at what makes something attractive, especially within the staffing industry, we look at, I don't know, maybe if we're looking at an attractive staffing market, we might look at growth rates and, growth and legislation. And I think there has been legislation that has for some time now, but I think organizations are really getting to the helm that they need to just do a bit more than what is legally required. And we do see this across the board. As you quite rightly said, there is a really high representation of women within our industry, about 60%, but this does unfortunately go down to about 6% at leadership roles. So I think there is definitely much more. I think the staffing industry, when I recently reviewed the largest global staffing firms, in fact, and the representation there is equal 60% within internal staff. But that does drop to 34% at executive leadership level. But that is obviously better than the 6% mentioned earlier. So maybe we're not doing too bad compared to other sectors. But equally, I do spend a lot of time reviewing statistics and annual reports and so on and so forth. And sometimes areas such as women, diversity, LGBTQ, disability gets mentioned very infrequently. So if we're as an industry saying that we really want to promote these people, and let's not forget our clients are demanding it now, that they want to be, that it's no longer, seeing a supplier diverse company on the MSP board kind of thing, but, they actually really want to see diverse candidates in all of our offering. So I think it would be definitely a positive improvement to continue this. And I know there's many of members, DECA have committed to promoting diversity as one of their 4 sustainable priorities. Randstad has had diversity KPIs as part of their long-term share initiative for quite some time already. Even the Japanese Staff and Firm Recruit plans to have 50% of its senior managerial roles within 10 years. So there's definitely a commitment there. Maybe we need to now start thinking a little bit more about other protected characteristics within the industry. So as I said, LGBTQ, disability, faith and religion. But I think we are definitely progressing, and I don't think it's actually going to be a subject matter that we won't be talking about again. I think this is going to come up time and time again, and what people are doing, and what they're held accountable to.
No, it's a very important topic once again. And again, the industry can probably do more. I think we're already doing quite a lot, but it's very important because as an industry, we need to reflect internally the reality of the labor market. If the staff working for this industry is not, indeed reflecting the diversity of the working population in general, we are not going to be as efficient as we should be. So this is also not only a topic of values and respect for the diversity, but also a topic of efficiency,
Sure.
So we need to look like, the reality of the labor market.
Yeah, and as I said, I definitely think this is something that comes from a moral perspective. Of course, it's the right thing to do, but also it does reflect what clients want. We see time and time again in sort of our buyer surveys, which are contingent workforce programs, rather large ones. And when we ask them about future workforce strategies, especially around diversity, the most popular one is diverse suppliers. At least 70% have diverse suppliers on their programs, and in EMEA 59%. So that was Americas and EMEA. But also the second most popular strategy is implementing a program to encourage candidate diversity. If they're not thinking about doing that now, they definitely will be doing that in the next 2 years. So I definitely see organizations leading towards that more, because you see in the staffing industry many new roles created that have the VP of diversity and inclusion. Many staffing firms, I think, are actually getting a grip of this. Do you see that where you are as well, the WEC, within the wider ecosystem?
Yeah, I think that's interesting, because I think besides what we do as an industry internally, let's not forget that we're also educating our customers, or at least some of them.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can be the ones being a bit reluctant, to employ, people from ethnic minorities, long-term unemployed people, disabled people. And because they are just afraid, but those people, they will not, integrate well into our company and so on. So we also have a role to play to educate, the customers. Sometimes we are using, for instance, the anonymous resume or CV, to push for a candidate. We know that the company might not be very, comfortable recruiting, type of person. So we say, okay, this is a great candidate. We don't show the face, we don't show the name. And just go and just go for an interview, and usually we're quite successful. So that's also something we are doing. And then again, if you look at the statistics of agency workers, but you know that better than me, the proportion of young people is overrepresented. The same for people from ethnic minorities.
Sure.
This is what we call the target groups. Also, usually long-term unemployed or older workers, they are overrepresented within our industry. So that really shows that we are trying to promote a diverse, workforce, and really pushing user companies, also to employ, people with a different background.
Yeah, and I think there is definitely much that our staffing companies can do to aid this. I see, especially more in maybe US companies, but the sort of the lacking of asking for previous pay rates, and obviously there is legislation, so that's an area that people are trying to get into, and that sort of helps as well with the gender pay gap. So yeah, there's definitely lots of incentives that staffing firms can do in order to really get a more diverse workforce internally and for their clients as well. So definitely a lot of work in this area to continue, I think.
Yeah, big topic to keep on the agenda for sure.
Okay, with that, I think that leaves us a nice representation. Thank you very much, Denis, for your time. Really appreciate it. Should you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Always happy to talk about diversity. Thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you very much to you for the invitation. Thank you.